Yes, welcome aboard the Bhoycie Bus. It's the Tuesday ticket and what could be a landmark night in Bhoycie Bus history. No, not because I'm just putting his Australian spin on more of Bhoycie Bus quotes like nobody cares, mate, because that is what he said today. If you don't think he watches the bus, I don't know what's wrong with you. He definitely stealing our patter left, right, and centre this season. Anyway, we'll get to all that. But it could be a momentous night for the bus because tonight someone's could go. I need to win Sutton Death tonight to hang in there for the final week. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that you just need to win one more, don't you?
I win tonight. You are finished. If you win tonight, we go to the final day of the season. Title decided.
I go first this week, though, right?
You've got the home advantage the next 2 weeks, I think. So it's a classic case of me having the points in the bag, but you potentially having the game in hand. It's very nicely poised.
Nicely poised. You think we'd scripted this, but we didn't because we're not capable. Hey, my dinner's coming back on me, man. I just rushed a rump steak, tomatoes, spinach. It was right good, man. No carbs. I'm going to do a meat month. Next month, I'm going to just eat meat the whole time. I'm going to find out what's involved in it. If you're not, I don't even think you're like processed meat. So it's just got like, do you know what I mean, like hammer stuff. I think it's got to be, unless it's like the good gear for the butcher. So it might cost me a lot to do meat month, but I might do it. It makes you feel good. Anyway, what am I talking about? Let's get on with this week's show. We will do all that good stuff first. All that good stuff means hit like, share, subscribe, slag my hair, all of that stuff. But not just that, Jonathan. You can also become a Bhoycie Bus member. And I know the chat is looking lively today already. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, it's $1.99 a month. And it's completely optional. It keeps the wheels on the road, though. It does encourage us with the channel. It keeps that bus going at 100 miles an hour, you could say. And if you want to become a bus member, Bhoycie Bus member, like so many in the chat, I could say like Ryan Taylor, like Brown Warrior, like Alistair Jack, like Uncle Nobby's Steamboat, like Tattoo Face Tantrums, like JM, like Ali, like Paul Diet. He's digging the colour coordination as well.
Yeah, we planned that as well. We had a wardrobe meeting before we came on.
It's all a script. It's all a work, mate. That's what they say, isn't it? It's all a work. Right, okay. We've got that. And then, of course, not forgetting Pie Sports at the top, 12.5% off at the checkout. Tasty discount there. And those pies are worth it. And, of course, a massive shout out to our latest sponsors, Jonathan ED Pharmacy, because they've got very much a policy, like I do for Sutton Death tonight, and that is go hard or go home. They supply erectile dysfunction treatments, and they won't let you down. Erectile dysfunction treatment specialists, unsure about what you want? Use the chat now function on their website, and they'll be happy to help. If you're around the central Scotland, they offer free same-day delivery service 7 days a week. And for the rest of the UK, they aim for next-day delivery. Order cut off 6 p.m. No hidden fees. The prices you see are the prices you pay. And remember to use the promo code BUS10 at the checkout for 10% off. adpharmacy.co.uk. Right, I think that is us done. Jonathan, nobody cares, mate. Well, I care because it might not be quite time to talk about Ange because we've got to do something before that. Over to you.
Well, Russell, it's been another interesting week in the footballing climate. Football seems to have been forgotten about and it's been replaced by boxing analogies across the board, really, in Scottish football over the past week. We've had Kenny Miller coming out with his fantasy league table, saying that Mickey Beale has gone toe-to-toe with Ange Postecoglou. I think he must be even more dazed than the fans that were watching the women's football at the weekend and were in complete shock when there was actually a goal disallowed for Rangers at Ibrox. Must be the first time that's happened in many a year. And, looking further into the boxing analogies, we've got Ange Postecoglou doing a little bit of verbal sparring with the media today. I know we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail shortly. But when it really comes down to boxing, Russell, what we're witnessing is, Celtic already as champions, already holding that belt, if you like. as Ange Postecoglou puts it, and possibly not really caring about the rounds at the moment. However, the preliminaries are almost over. We are now fast approaching pay-per-view evening on June the 3rd for a box office event not to be missed, because on June the 3rd at 5:30 kickoff time, Celtic go in looking to make history in the only game that matters in the remainder of this season. Box office, boxing, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. The main event is closing in, and whatever else the media want to talk about is just pure noise that nobody cares about.
Oh, rounded up nicely with the present day. I love it, Jonathan. And it was great getting Ange press. I mean, I've said before, I think you get the odd quote, the odd quip, but I'm glad I don't do like a Friday show. Like, I'm glad it's Bustalgia and it's not me having to like go over his press conferences in detail, because he doesn't want to be there and I don't want to go over each and every quote. But today, he seemed like his hackles were up, did he not? His hackles are up. He meant business from the get-go today. He decided he was coming out firing. And I thought fair play to him for that, by the way, because I think you're absolutely right, mate. The media noise, and that is all it is at this moment in time. There's been noise for the other side of the city all season, and I just had to listen to it. Well, he delivers trophies, another guy delivers quotes for us to rip the piss out of in the bus, to be perfectly honest with you, which is fine. But let's be honest, he came out today like a boxer. Shoulders just rolling a wee bit, mate. He was ready to rock and roll, and he was waiting for the questions. It's almost like he writes them for them. And I tell you the other one, I've said this before, but that Gabriel Antoniazzi guy that does it for, I think he used to be PLZ, he now does it for Clyde One. They're going to need to like send him to different press conferences next season, because I'm worried about him. He must cry himself to sleep every night, the night before an Ange presser and the night after, the day after, because he just doesn't. I just rips the piss out of him. But interestingly enough, it wasn't his questions today that got him riled. But I think Ange had these answers already prepped. I've suggested that before. He has some of these one-liners already in his back pocket. He just waits for the first ditty to tee him up, and he just knocks them down, mate. And it's fair enough. Nobody cares, mate. Absolutely brilliant. We are watching an exodus of players across the city, of guys we've been hammered and rammed. We've had the stories that rammed down our throats, that these guys are going to cost X amount, 20 million here, 30 millions to China, 10 millions to the EPL like Ryan Kent. They're all going out the back door for F all. I think it was the 4 Tims on a podcast that they posted. They joined us with Celtic champions. They left us when Celtic were champions. And I like that one from them. Good bunch of boys. And I enjoyed that tweet today. I thought, yeah, that's not far off the money there, you know. And they've left at a cost to Rangers that has been including transfer fees paid out, wage improvements during that time, and all of them, these idiots slink out that back door having achieved a COVID title and a Scottish Cup last year. Europa finals, great. And fair play to them on that bit. It was a runners-up medal at the end of the day. I mean, these guys, we have had heralded for years, were far better than what we were watching with our eyes. Now, of course, we watched them through green tinted specs, and I get all that, but realistically, we were never convinced that they were going to be bringing, the cash cows that Rangers thought they were going to be. Certainly their supporters did, probably their boardroom as well, when they started inflating Alfredo's wages to 30,000, 40,000 a week. They must have thought the coins are going to come in, the chips are coming in at some point. Now they all leave, and the media want to ask Ange in a positive way about this story. Does that not tell you Rangers' challenge will be stronger next year? I mean, he must marvel at this stuff. Let's flip it and go, Ange has 5 players that he's bought in, or Celtic have bought in for the fees that Rangers have, the wages that have been paid the last few years, and they're all walking out the door, and they're all first-team players that we're talking about here. When you look at Arfield, Kent, Morelos, McGregor, how on earth, what planet would you need to be living on for Ange to get asked a positive question about that? Like, do you think that means you'll be stronger next year, Ange? They just would never line it up like that. This is all utter farcical. And I think Ange had already had his fill before today. He knew a stupid question like that was coming. I think even his eyebrows raised a wee bit that, fucking hell, I knew they'd ask me about it because they're idiots, but I didn't think they'd tell me it was a good thing. And it's like, let's lay this down. Nobody cares, mate. Perfect response.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Postecoglou was waiting on that one from the media. I think it was quite clear he was going into this conference fully aware of what he was going to be dealing with from the media today. I think the narrative over the past couple of weeks, Postecoglou is probably not as familiar with this. It's been a long time since Celtic have had a couple of poor results under Ange domestically, and even once the league is done, he's still finding that there is quite a bit of criticism there, and there's all sorts of shifting narratives now. With what Kenny Miller was saying, the other day about how actually Mickey Beale has now picked up more points since he's been in the door than Postecoglou, which makes no sense.
We'll get to that one.
Really.
We'll get to that one.
Which makes no sense really whatsoever. But when you're looking first of all just at the Rangers' strengthening position, I just don't understand how anyone could possibly think that's a realistic question to be put into the Celtic manager. It only would happen in Scottish football because, quite frankly, both teams are going to change over the summer. This is one of the most interesting narratives you ever see going into the close season. It's almost as if Rangers are the only team that does business in the summer months, and Celtic just stand there and watch and wait to see what they do. That's
absolutely. We'll not be buying anyone.
Aye, we just sit and see what's going on at Ibrox and just like, oh, they got stronger, Ange, and he just does that wee face, that wee gif. Oh, they've signed whoever it is from fucking England. Oh,
the Vickers one.
That's what he's just doing. That's what he does all summer.
I dare say he doesn't read the newspaper, but say if he must hear about it online or whatever, just say it was a newspaper. How many times this season would you have unfolded the back page and went,
like every fucking day if he's reading the papers, he'd be like, bloody hell. He'd had it down to perfection. He'd scripted that face long before Carter Vickers made that mistake against him. Been practicing it every day for a bloody couple of years. But when you're looking at it, you just think, what a load of absolute rubbish, absolute nonsense to be coming out with, from the media. And it beggars belief that they can possibly turn around and think, Rangers losing 5 of their players that, generally speaking, are usually in the first team can be a good thing for them. I mean, that if you took 5 of Celtic's first team players out of their team in the summer and they were to lose 5 of their better players, nobody's going to be turning around and saying, oh, aye, and the rebuild, oh God, they're going to win the Europa League now. This is it. This is how he's going to do it. He's just going to do Joe Hart, Hatai.
So let's break it down. I mean, what they said to him today. So do you think that means Rangers will be more of a challenge next year? And he's like that. Sorry, the start of this season they were Europa League finalists and Scottish Cup, title holders, champions, whatever it was they were describing it as last season. He's good. I think what Ange's acutely aware of and trying to make the media aware of what he's saying without having to say it is, they've won fuck all. Do you know what I mean? They're not in as good a position as they were this time last year. The year before that, they were the league champions, whether it be COVID or not. So how is it going to work out again that their challenge is stronger? This spin. I think that Alistair Campbell at Labour, Jonathan, must have made a comeback. Remember that guy who used to work with Tony Blair?
Oh, yes.
He must have made a comeback and working. I know. I actually think he's aligned himself to Celtic at times on Twitter. But anyway, I think you need a spin doctor of that level to try and turn this into what a feel-good day, eh? 5 first-team players leave. Ange, you're shiting yourself, son. It's just like, this is bizarre. And they should have heeded the warning, because what Ange did today he gave a glimpse of last week, remember? And the glimpse that he gave was the well-off-the-mark comment.
Yeah.
You're trying to you think I'm going to be shopping in Lidl's again, eh? Like, you're well off the mark. And I thought that was a shot over the bow a wee bit. And today's came in full of defence for our achievements this season, full of defence for the competitions we've won and the competition we're still in. He was quick to remind us of that. He was quick to remind us that we are league champions unless there's some new rules that are going to be arriving sometime soon or whatever it was he said. Kenny Miller, pick him up off the floor somewhere because he's been knocked out and all. And then it's like, I just feel with all this is now a build-up to what you're doing. We have got, and I'll be honest, see sometimes the media when he first took over, what he actually was being at the time was assured, composed, and with full courage of his convictions, Jonathan. So when we weren't winning at the beginning, he wasn't panicking at the beginning. He knew what he was doing, and it annoyed me at the time because I felt he's a bit blasé about this here, but it wasn't blasé. It came with an inner confidence and inner belief, and we're beginning to see those traits right now again in the press of today where hey, you ain't ruffling my feathers, mate, by releasing 5 players. How that was meant to, I'll never know, but I'm sure there'll come a day where they'll sign 5 players, all from League One in England, and you'll be asking me the same question. And I think he looks to me, despite the fact we were talking yesterday on the Monday Club about him being on the Spurs shortlist, for example, and that to be if he's not to be getting that job, which we highly doubt, that won't be the last shortlist that he'll be getting linked with this summer, right? We all know that. But to me, he looked today. What I liked about the presser wasn't just the funny aspects of it, and we all love it. You put down your rivals and all that stuff, or the media in particular today. But what you really like is he seems poised and up for going again. That doesn't seem like to me a Celtic manager who's thinking about I'm away off ski tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? I mean, obviously you'd have decisions to make if you used to get phone calls to fly down to London to speak to Spurs and £20 million a year put in his lap or whatever it is they get paid down there. It's crazy. But notwithstanding that, he looked to me a guy 100% like in focus and with his eyes on the prize at Celtic right now and what he's going to be doing next season. He was talking, obviously, letting it the conversation transpire into next season tells you, I think we've got the right guy in situ right now. I think they've created the monster. Here's the theory I've got. I think the media and Mickey have got the last thing they wanted out of all this nonsense. And I think all you're doing is re-energising him, re-motivating him, and making him want to stay longer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on. I think when it was Gio that was in charge, I actually think Postecoglou sometimes felt a little bit sorry for wee Gio because I think Gio came across at least reasonably well and he got a bit of time and respect for Van Bronckhorst and what he'd accomplished, not just in the game, but I think how he went about his business was he was fairly respectful towards the opposition as well, whereas Mickey Beale just seems to be writing everybody off, only ever wants to talk about us and only ever wants to try and put us down. But the fact of the matter is, when the pushes came to shove, Mickey Beale's record in these games has been abysmal. And, he's been nowhere near it in the ones that have actually mattered. And I think Postecoglou, again, was quite quick to remind the media of that. I think he's already probably got lines in his back pocket, I would like to think, and I'm absolutely convinced of, if Celtic go on to win the Scottish Cup, you can bet your bottom dollar he will have a quip in his post-match interview after that game if Celtic win the Cup that he's been saving back and he's been thinking on for weeks and weeks. And I think especially the last couple of weeks, because the media have now tried to switch the narrative after the league title's already been won and because Celtic have taken their foot off the pedal, that they now think they can just turn around and say, oh, it was actually quite close this season. It's like, on what planet was it close? Celtic have won the League Cup. They won the league with many games to spare. They're in the Scottish Cup final, having knocked Rangers out. It's just not close. It's laughable to even try and turn around and say it's close. And now, because Rangers have closed the gap, once they can't catch Celtic, it's supposedly got closer. I just think it's baffling. I think Postecoglou has absolutely no time for it. I think you're right. I think he is also looking at it and thinking he wants to go again. He wants another crack at Europe. I'm convinced of that. I'm convinced he wants another crack at Europe. But I think
can I just say, is there a balancing act to when that is your ambition, the Europe thing, that domestically it can be quite slim? No, it's not slim because it must be an amazing feeling, right? But eventually when you've got true ambition in a world football scale and you're not a Celtic fan like we all are, who this is our bread and butter, this is what when you've got eyes on other leagues and your career's took a trajectory that tells you you're always seeking new challenges that are going to be very different from the one that you've just left, things like that, that's fine. But I wonder if you could stimulate the domestic thing for me a wee bit as well, that just adds more to the case of let's go again in Europe. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying he's having doubts anyway. Everything's got pros and cons to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you've completed it, mate, domestically, all you can really do is complete it again, right? Which is very, very difficult to do. And then before you know it, your second season hasn't been it'd be his third season, hasn't been as compelling as the season before because he didn't do another treble. So you're almost destined to fail like that. Do you know what I mean? Considering we've only won eight trebles in our history. 7. Is it 7 or 8?
7 or 8. I think we're going for 8.
If this is going to be 8. This is going.
I think we're going for 8.
Yeah. But if you can stir the pot a bit and think you're going to get rid of me and think I'm leaving my tail behind my legs because of your pish, actually you've just spiced up the domestic scene as well. He doesn't need to be sold what the Champions League means. He doesn't need to be sold on that dream. But the domestic thing, I would imagine most managers of that sort of ability, and if he's as good as what we make out, then you need to sell domestic Scottish game to them a wee bit. And I think our enemies are doing it for us right now. What a wonderful space to be in.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's very much became a bit more of a changed man, particularly since Beale took on the Rangers job. And I think the media narrative, and I think he probably does end up just feeling a bit frustrated that he doesn't feel the club and himself get necessarily all the credit they deserve from the media. And it's almost as if they try and twist things to try and make it look as if Celtic aren't quite as strong as they have been this season. And I think he's determined to try and prove them wrong. I mean, there's a few indications there that, he's wanting to hang around. Obviously, we know, and you and Terry discussed that Dermot Desmond was in the building last week talking with Postecoglou. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if that is to do with a new contract, and that might well be announced in the build-up to the Scottish Cup final. That's my hunch anyway, as to something that Celtic would be looking at doing. And it would make sense to tie Postecoglou down if indeed that would be of interest to him as well. And, that the body language and how he was going about things today in the media conference certainly suggested that he wasn't tired or fed up at Celtic quite yet. I think there's still a little bit of mileage left in Postecoglou at the club, at least another season, I think, unless something crazy was to happen. There's somebody from England does come in with an offer that's up at the top end. I don't think it'll be Spurs. I think Spurs will look for somebody else. Spurs will look for a name that's a bit more well known in English football.
The story is he is on the shortlist though.
Oh yeah. I mean, he might well be on the shortlist, and I think that goes to show how good a job he's done. At Celtic, that he's making shortlists at the likes of a Tottenham Hotspur, and absolutely, it's well deserved for him to be on that shortlist. I think if I was looking at it from a Spurs point of view, I think they'll probably go for somebody that's a bit more well known to try and get them through. And obviously, with the fans down there, I think being a little bit more hostile towards Daniel Levy at the minute, I don't think they would necessarily appreciate them going up to Scotland to pick their next manager. They do have a little bit of a snobbish attitude, not just Spurs fans, just English football fans in general, towards the Scottish League.
It would be a risk. But you could draw parallels. You could draw parallels to what Ange walked into at Celtic and go,
of course,
he carried that can on his own. He wants the autonomy. I'm in no position to really have much autonomy if you were Daniel Levy. And you might go, he's the perfect guy. He's shown that he can carry it all on his two shoulders and completely rejig a way of thinking, a style of football, and get a whole fan base re-energised. That's a compelling argument. You could draw those parallels as well. There's two sides to it. I think also, Gary, cheers for your comment, mate. And you're absolutely right. I don't think it's necessarily because it's only England that would tickle his pickle. I think he absolutely would be a manager that would be open to any of the big 5, big 6 leagues in Europe, 100%. But again, this isn't us talking or trying to push Andrew out the door. You see stories from a few reasonably reputable sources suggesting he's on a Spurs shortlist. You talk about it. You see his presser today. He looks happy as Larry at Celtic. In fact, he looks motivated. As I say, I'll use the term again. He looked like a re-energised Ange, ready for all the questions. And it was quite interesting. It was quite interesting because when we look at Postecoglou's other comments, he was asked quite a few good questions today as well, in the midst of all this, believe it or not. One of them is very interesting about the goalkeeper. and an observation we spoke about at length in pre-season on the bus. And it was, and I was quite impressed that someone remembered it. And they were saying, when you look at Joe Hart, and he's obviously trying to get a bite out of, would you want to improve? Is that going to be an area you improve on? Because that's what's all over the radio station, the phone-ins and all that now, and it's over all the Celtic pods as well. Is that an area that can be improved on? Right, it is. He's the current fall guy, Joe Hart, and again, I signpost this throughout the season. It goes in cycles, and it was Matt O'Reilly 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Joe Hart is now the fall guy, and he will pass that parcel on at some point again to someone else come the start of next season who's looks like they've checked out, looks like they don't want to be here, the window's not shut yet, he's obviously angling for a move, they'll be the fall guy for a bit. And unfortunately, we're guilty of that. Probably myself included as well. Certainly, the wider across the fan base, you see it a hell of a lot. What's interesting about the Joe Hart observation, though, for the journalist, if you can bear with me 2 seconds, was that he was noticing against Norwich in pre-season, Joe Hart doesn't seem to have adopted the role that he had in playing in those games, because he was, at times, so noticeably out his box. It was like 15, 20 yards, like just positioned when he had the ball. And it was so obvious to your eyes when you're watching the game, like, is that Joe Hart standing there? Like, he's not even near the ball, and he's just, look how far out he was. And I think we predicted on the bus, I think it was a TNF, the Celtic would concede a goal from, not necessarily in a team in their own half, but around the half-line vicinity, if that's how they're going to play. Ange didn't look like he wanted to answer the question completely honestly, because you don't want to give the game away, but he did allude to that would be something he might be more inclined to do in the Champions League. Well, my thought would be, if that's what he wants to do in the Champions League, Jonathan, would that be Joe Hart in the goal?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It would need to be somebody else in there. But as I say, I think when we've been discussing it at length, that when we get to the summer months, in terms of positions that need strengthened, I think most of us probably think goalkeeper is one of those positions we should be looking at. Not just because I think we could do with a better shot stopper, but I think Postecoglou might well fancy a goalkeeper that is a bit more modern than Joe Hart and can play out a little bit from the back and can be like one of those sweeper keepers that you see in the modern day football and at the top clubs. Is now part of a goalkeeper's role to be able to play that way. And I would be very surprised if that wasn't something that would tickle Ange Postecoglou's fancy, as having a goalkeeper that is able to do that. And that is clearly not Joe Hart's game. That was never Joe Hart's game, and that was why he ended up getting cut off at Manchester City once Guardiola went in, is because Pep took one look at him and realised he's not going to be able to adapt to what a modern goalkeeper needs to be able to do at the top end, in European football and indeed in the English Premiership. So I think when Postecoglou is looking at it now, he's 2 years in. Joe Hart's done a good job for us over the past 2 years. I think certainly the past couple of weeks he has made a few mistakes. But granted, any goalkeeper you have is going to make mistakes, and it's not necessarily something you can just throw him completely away just because he's made a couple of mistakes in games which we've already alluded to weren't the important ones. But I think for me, when I look at somebody like Joe Hart, the problem I really have with him is I just can't really imagine him making any big saves, particularly going into the bigger stage of Champions League football. I couldn't imagine him, putting in a performance like likes of Foster and Boric have done for us before. And I quite often think, for Celtic, given, the gulf in quality, particularly when you're looking at the top seeds, whoever that is in the groups that we get, that is going to be a good few levels above us. You are going to need your goalkeeper to have a very good day if you're going to get anything from those games. And history has proven that when Celtic have had big results previously in the Champions League, it's been on the back of world-class goalkeeping performances. I don't think Joe Hart has that in him, and I would be surprised if Ange Postecoglou feels the same way. And that will be one of many reasons why I suspect he will be looking at another goalkeeper in the summer.
Yeah, it's just, again, there's nothing disrespectful. As Gary 8 thinks there's disrespect to Joe Hart, but then says every position can be improved on. Well, we're talking about the goalkeeper here, because that was the question, my man, that Andrews put to him, and I thought the style of football, that's how we led into the question, and then it takes you to, well, if that's Ange's idea for the Champions League, because the other teams don't sit off in the Champions League, and he thinks that would benefit us more if we're winning the ball higher up, and you've got the goalkeeper there, he thinks that's going to suit us in the Champions League more, then of course it begs the question, is that is that going to suit his game? I think that's absolutely fair questions to ask. Paul Dyatt wants to know what happens when the new £10 million keeper has his first clanger, put him out on loan. Well, again, Paul, I'll be completely honest with you, and cheers to jump on the bus as always, mate, whatever corner of the globe you're in, and say hello to the wife, or does she only have to listen when you're on holiday? I don't know, mate. But what happens when the new £10 million keeper has his first clanger, put him out on loan? Well, Joe Hart's had 2 seasons. That's not knee-jerk. That'd be knee-jerk what you're saying there. I don't think any observation on Joe Hart now is knee-jerk from any Celtic fan, whether that be a positive one or a negative one. But you have to bring balance to the debate. My honest takeaway was I felt that John Souttar header, I don't think was the bullet as described. I think Kobayashi took a hell of a lot of the flack for that, and rightfully so. But I would like to see my goalkeeper be able to react slightly to it, even if he doesn't get to it. I do think there was time for him to react. I thought at the weekend he definitely could have reacted, Jonathan, a bit more than he does.
The first goal's awful. I'm sorry, the first goal's awful. He just needs to use his feet. I don't know why he's falling over.
It was a weird reaction, that. And I do think there's nothing wrong with looking like you've made an effort. Sometimes it could maybe strengthen your case as well. Like put in some sort of reaction, rather than, I think Terry said it. Remember about 3 weeks ago, and he said, I think it was on the PMP that Steve O'Mara just jumped in the chat. I think he said to him, the thing is that he was having the issue with Hart was, he just looks like he's falling on his hole, I think was the term that Terry used at times, and not really making much movement. I am very much in the camp that Hart can be improved on. But I thought we could get a better goalkeeper than Hart when we signed Joe Hart. What I didn't bargain for at that time was how essential he was going to be to the group. He'll be in the leadership group section if there is one at Celtic. I know the modern clubs like those sort of terms these days. And I think he'd have been a very, very impressive role model to the younger players, and he brought a winning mentality. Whether he's as capable on the park of what it used to be or not, what he'll have brought off the park would have been brilliant. And he's had good moments in his Celtic career. But as I always remind people, don't start falling in love with the individual. Celtic's been just as good, if not better, for Joe Hart than the other way around. So let's not lose ourselves here. To use Joe Hart's own words, his career was in the abyss before he joined Celtic. That's Joe Hart who said that. Yeah. So Celtic's been good to him too for the last 2 years. He's won trophies, played Champions League again. He said he's played in a 60,000 stadium, the biggest home stadium he's ever played in as a home player, unless Torino's is bigger. But I doubt they get the crowds we do. And I think it's okay to observe that if Ange's wanting to play that really high up sweeper keeper sort of thing, and he's identifying it and potentially in the Champions League, I think it's fair to then, if you join those dots, to come up with the conclusion that there might be a new goalkeeper added. He spoke about the mentality, Jonathan, and the reason he had to do that was another half decent question, which was based on the fact Matt O'Reilly had said, we've worked a lot this week on mindset. I'm going to guess Ange wouldn't have wanted him to say that, but he's like, don't give the game away, you bastard. So then when he's asked, what does that mean, Ange? He was like, I don't know, experience. I'm like, that is not how the last week's conversations have been. I think Matt O'Reilly's probably just given a wee bit too much away there for Ange's like, and I don't think he wanted to answer that one. But again, Matt O'Reilly just being refreshingly honest and not taking 10 minutes per answer to tell you that. It was just an honest answer to a question. Do Celtic need to work on the mindset, or are you surprised they've been working on mindset at all? Or is this just gearing us now back up, going, Easter Road away, they won't be giving us any carrots, to quote Kenny Dalglish, because they're still going for Europe. We've got a trophy to lift. You always want to lift the trophy on the back of a win, in my opinion. I think that's... And you always want to go into a cup final on the back of a couple of good wins as well, and the cup finals closing in. So mindset might be a thing, like, we won the league, we've basked in it, I've not grilled you. In fact, I've came out, I'm going to go out this week and I'm going to defend you at the tilt. I'm going to be the very poised manager that's totally in control. I'm going to celebrate your successes. But behind the scenes now, it's time to get back to business for 3 more games.
Yeah, I think he's going to be looking to get the momentum shifted back, to get Celtic back into winning ways, and he'll want to win the last 2
league games, just so we've got that sort of winning rhythm back before the Scottish Cup final approaches. So I think that is something there that he will definitely be looking to address tomorrow at Easter Road. I think, they've came on for a bit of criticism, whether people think that's fair or not. That has been the case the last couple of weeks. A few poorer performances once the league is done. What you don't want is the league season petering out, dropping points at Hibs, dropping points from the last day of the season against Aberdeen, and then you're going into the game against Inverness having not won in, 4 or 5 games. Not that I think that'll happen, by the way, but that's just the other side of it if we don't address this sort of slip in form in the next couple of games. And you want to just start building the confidence, get people starting into that rhythm once again, because as Ange will be no doubt acutely aware, the main game does come on June the 3rd. That is the one he's got his eyes on. He might say we don't stop or whatever else, but I think he has stopped and he has been looking ahead to that cup final. And I think now he's going to start putting the foot back on the gas. He's given the players a little bit more leeway based off winning the league. It's fair enough. I think there's always going to be drop-offs when that happens. I know you were talking about Martin O'Neill's era and that happening.
Me?
On the treble.
I wasn't. And Jonathan, what are you talking about? I never talk about Martin O'Neill's era on this channel, ever.
Yeah, you've even got a wee klaxon for him. Where is that klaxon? Have we still got that klaxon? Where is he? Oh, there he is. There he is, the Martin O'Neill klaxon.
Remember he used to have a sound effect?
Yeah, he did, he kind of just screamed at us, didn't he? But I remember under O'Neill, in one of the seasons, I think he'd won the league in 03-04, and he followed it up. He lost at home to Aberdeen to lose his home record that we'd had for about 76 games. I remember being absolutely raging at the time about that because I loved the home record. But in the grand scheme of things, it didn't make any great deal of difference. He actually followed up. He lost to Dunfermline as well on Trophy Day that season.
That's right.
Which
was
you may remember.
Dundee the game before? Caballero was brilliant, I'm sure, in Nimsadze.
It's Aberdeen. It was Aberdeen that beat us 2-1. Aberdeen's
Who was the game against Dundee that I remember? Caballero and Nimsadze being good. I'm sure that was end of season. You should have done
a different season. Dunfermline did us on the Trophy Day in 03-04. Aberdeen did us just a week before that to end the home record. Remember, actually, ironically, lost the next home game, I think, to Dunfermline. But I'd been coming. We'd drawn with Motherwell and a couple other. We had a dodgy draw with Hearts in the build-up to that as well. So, if this is something like Martin O'Neill with the team that he had at his disposal, which, we're just off the back of getting to the UEFA Cup final the year before, and everybody knows how good that Martin O'Neill team was, then I think you can cut Ange's team a little bit of slack that once the league is actually won, it is human nature to not have quite the same level of competitive edge going into the remaining games. And I know people might talk about records and the opportunities Celtic had to, set a new points total, set a new goal scoring total, all that sort of stuff. But, at the end of the day, it's harder to get motivated for that when there's no silverware on the line. But I think because the cup final is now on the horizon, not far to go, I would be surprised if there isn't a pickup in performance tomorrow night. I actually think Celtic will win. I think Celtic will win quite comfortably. I think Celtic will respond in a similar vein to Ange Postecoglou has responded to the media. I think they might swap Hibs tomorrow.
So with that in mind, would that involve then reverting more to a lineup we think's closer to being the first choice one than what we've seen at the weekend? And by the way, he also spoke today about why he made the changes. He realised, and he said it's not just because you're coming to the end of the season, it's the cup finals on the horizon. And if we pick up any injuries, some of the guys that haven't played for weeks, I can now get minutes on the legs because we've done the hard bit of winning the league title, sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. But he was basically saying that's why he's been able to make the changes he has, because at the end of the day, Greg Taylor could pick up a knock tomorrow. For example, Bernabei needs to play left back. And if Bernabei needs to play left back, he needs to have played some games in the last few months. That's why he's taking those risks. And just including going to Ibrox and that. That doesn't sit well with people. I get that because of the rivalry. But I also think there's a brilliant angle on that where you go, they're just another team. And once we've done our bit, they're not getting any special treatment from me. Do you know what I mean? My squad comes first. Me making sure. And of course, he wants to see how good they are as well. Right,
Yeah.
there is a bit of that, right, and we know that you've got to get a wee bit of evidence as to how they're shaping up so far since they joined, and whether it be in Bernaby's case last summer, Kobayashi's in January, but also it made total sense what you said today. I had to get some guys in to get minutes because we can still pick up injuries between now and the 3rd of June. Let's get it right, you know.
Yeah, well, that is a possibility as well, and it's why you always rotate your squad. And I think, as I've said before, with the Rangers game anyway, he wanted to find out how well his fringe players could do at Ibrox. And I stand by the fact, even though Celtic lost the game, I understand the thinking behind that team selection, because you're never going to know unless you give players an opportunity in those types of environments. And fair enough, on that occasion, the players that came in didn't rise to the occasion and didn't produce a performance that was good enough on the day, and it's probably given Postecoglou a bit of food for thought as to whether they'll be good enough to go into those sort of key games again if he was pushed into it. I suspect not. But when you're talking about injuries, I think he's also mentioned the encouraging news was that Johnson is looking like he'll be back now for the cup final. I think he was back training.
He's too tough, man. He'll be all right.
He was back training. Obviously, probably won't feature tomorrow, but certainly, you give him a week or so of training, then I would imagine he'll be fine for the cup final to go back in, which is a big boost for us because I think Ralston didn't have his best game. And again, I think with Ralston, he's been a bit unlucky this year, but he's probably just not had enough minutes. For me, I still think he's a good backup right back to have, and I still think he can push Johnson quite a bit for that position when he's on top form, Tony Ralston. So I do understand it in some ways why he would rotate the team. I think he'll do it tomorrow? No, I think it'll be fairly close to what he'll line up with in the cup final. I don't think there'll be too many changes, maybe a couple. As I say, the right back situation will probably change because of the injury to Johnson. I would imagine he comes back in. I think his interesting one, Russell, is he's got a bit of a conundrum to solve as to who partners Starfelt at centre back, because I don't know if he knows who his next best option is there now that he doesn't have Carter Vickers and he's only got 2 games left to try and work that out. Because, by all accounts, Kobayashi's played at centre back, against Hearts and Rangers, and I think most haven't been impressed, and rightfully so. I don't think he's had the most endearing of performances, shall we say, in either of those games. And then he's had to put a midfielder in Iwata back to centre half, at the weekend there against St Mirren, and by all accounts, it sounds as if he didn't have the best of games either. So he's in a bit of a conundrum there. And I think that's the one that is very much a moving target as to who gets that spot at centre back beside Starfelt. But I think outside of that and the right back, I think the rest of the team tomorrow night will probably play in the Scottish Cup final, because I think he wants to build the momentum back up. And the way you do that is by playing the players you're going to play when the cup final rolls round. And I get what you're saying about injuries, but I think at this point in the season, I think we should hopefully be okay. Hibs, generally speaking, we don't tend to pick up too many injuries. They're not, as bad as hammer throws as some of the other teams in the league. That's not to say it couldn't happen, of course. But I think Postecoglou will now just be looking at this, and he'll see the narrative over the last couple of weeks. I think you'll want to address it. I think you'll want to get the best players back in the team, get them back in their groove, build the momentum back up for the cup final. And I wouldn't expect you'll see too many players. But on the centre-back situation, do you have any indication as to what you think he might do with that? Because I think that's a very interesting one. I think that is one he might even experiment again with, Kobayashi and Iwata, perhaps one of them playing on tomorrow night and one of them playing at the weekend. Because I don't know if he's confident over which one his best one is to play with Starfelt.
Well, we had a comment on the channel from yesterday. I'm watching the live chat, by the way. Everyone go easy on Pam. There was a joke there that I'm going to trust was a wee bit out of context and forgetting the audience, particularly in 2023. There's a yellow card being dished out, Jonathan. Just got to keep on top of it. Pam is a legend. Oh, and Alex, 96. There was Alex Subsey. He has stepped in because Pam's YouTube has not let her give memberships, which you don't need to always do, Pam. It's really, really kind of you. I appreciate it. But Alex has came in and went, done it for you, Pam. 5 memberships he has dished out. So whoever is the beneficiaries of those, let us know in the chat. And Alex, thanks as always for your support, mate. And it's brilliant to see so many members on the bus. And we really, really do. We really do appreciate it. And an amazing email as well. I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name. David Scullion, who watches the bus, he sent a really kind email which I picked up today because I've not checked that email address in ages. So, David, if you're watching, big shout out to you, pal. But yeah, centre backs, fuck man. One of the comments we got, to go back to what I was trying to say, one of the comments we got on the show from yesterday, which is on the channel, was apparently Iwata played around 50% of his games in the J League at centre back. I watched some clips of him after that because I was like, well, I said prove it. Well, after faces at the end. Obviously, it was a bit of banter. And then I thought, I'm going to actually go watch his best bits again. Watch the wee 2-3 minute segment, and you realise a lot of the clips he is coming out from the back. He 100% is. He is coming out the back. So coming out the back sounds terrible. He is.
DD Pharmacy, bloody hell.
Stepping out from the back to win some of the interceptions. He is. There's a lot of silky skills that you can see, which you were more accustomed to a midfielder. But if the commenter was right, and I wish I could remember his name to give him a shout out, because I like having different angles on it. The way they were speaking was that if he's done 50% of his games at the J League and he was an Ange player before, I would have thought he would be more inclined maybe to get the preferential treatment than Kobayashi. Here's the other debate. If you think he might try them both in the next 2 games, what about Martin Weir's take? And just play the 2 guys that you're not sure of. Let them have a straight shootout and rest Starfelt. Martin Weir, that is ballsy. But you never know.
He could look at that, yeah. I mean, it's another option. I think the reason he'll probably play Starfelt is he'll want to try and build the partnership between the two of them and see how they link up, because I think Starfelt's games obviously came on massively when he's playing with Carter Vickers, and it'd be good if Starfelt was able to take one of them two and get the best out of one of them playing alongside him. So I would imagine Starfelt probably plays, but it's definitely not the worst shout in the world to give the two of them a run together and see what happens, particularly, as I say, because the games are an opportunity left in the league to experiment a little bit there. But I do think that's probably the one position, I think, from a Celtic standpoint, that's not quite clear yet as to who will play in the cup final. I think that is probably the only spot I think that might be open for selection on the day. I think the rest of the team will pretty much pick itself. I think it'll be very difficult for many of the other players that are usually on the bench to force their way into Ange's starting 11 for the cup final. But when it comes to the centre half, I think that is a straight shootout there, and I'm not entirely sure which one Postecoglou will go for. What I would expect, though, is when that game rolls around, Inverness will most certainly target whether it's Kobayashi or Iwata. I think they will look at them as possibly the weak link come Scottish Cup final day.
Let's get real here, Jonathan, how ICT are going to play, right? They are going to be 10 men behind the ball, and they are going to get long.
Oh, of course.
And I don't blame them for that, by the way. You can't expect them to out footballers, but what they do now have is the Curtis Main template, and they will go, we need someone to do just that. I have no idea who Inverness Cali Thistle strikers are. I have no idea if they've got a physical specimen up top, as they say. But notwithstanding that, I do think the physicality side of it is going to be something that they try and expose. Oh, Brown Warriors, is he dishing out memberships now? What is going on here?
Everyone's doing it.
Everyone's doing it. Brown Warrior, he's been a legend to the bus community for a long time, so what a legend, man. Love it. Cali have Billy Mackay. He's a bit of a fox in the box. Kimchi Strider. I know what you're saying, mate. But yeah, they're going to want to expose the weaknesses, as you rightfully point out. And the weaknesses that we definitely know we've seen for Kobayashi against both Hearts and Rangers was he seems to lack the physical element. When we've got a lot of the ball, though, notwithstanding that, which we will against Inverness, and we've played teams of that level in the league or just a wee bit above that, he actually looked good before that. And the rewriting of history has maybe been a wee bit unfair on him as well. I suppose we work on a game basis, and we are a bit reactionary. It's just in our nature. But Kobayashi still probably played more decent games for Celtic than bad ones. Yeah, he's written off. As for Iwata, that was the first time in my memory he played centre-back for us. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
It didn't exactly work either, but it doesn't mean that this is now the rule. These could be exceptions to that rule. This could be part of an equation where he's got a Bernabe to the left, or he's got a Ralston playing to the right, and the team's kind of a wee bit off the boil, and we're not in the best of form. That sort of thing can all play factors as well. I think in Iwata we've got the guy with the more experience. I would be more inclined, and if Ange has brought him into the team most recently, I'm going to say it'll be Iwata. What that does for a Kobayashi in terms of confidence, I'm not too sure. But at the end of the day, when there's trophies on the line, you can't pander to an individual. It's all about the team. I think Iwata will bring, even if he is not used to some of the old school tactics that might be on display. I don't want to discredit Inverness Gaelic Thistle too much, but my experience of Scottish football is we don't play the same football they do in other leagues, including the J League. I mean, certainly, I don't know. I wonder if Iwata might be the one that you would go for, particularly when there's a bit of personal know-how there as well.
I think when you're looking at it, I think it just highlights who could end up being a very key player in the cup final. That's actually Carl Starfelt, because that sort of style of football that Inverness are going to try and play will be right up his street. And I think it's going to be up to him to really try and command whoever he's playing with as a centre-back partner, to try and make sure that he's got their back in those sort of situations, or at least is offering that reassurance to them that, you know, if they lose their battles, he's going to be able to kind of clear up, like Carter Vickers, generally speaking, manages to do for Starfelt. There's no doubt about it. Starfelt's confidence is far higher when he's playing alongside Carter Vickers. And I think a game against Inverness where we're expecting them to play it long, we're expecting them to try and turn it into a physical battle, that is the kind of thing that Carl Starfelt loves. That is his type of defending. It's just when there's no nonsense, get the ball away, ball's coming up to him, he'll deal with them all day. He's quite happy defending like that. And I just think he could be a big influence on whoever he is playing with at centre-back. I think Carl Starfelt could end up being a massive player in this game if Inverness do try those sort of tactics on us. But, you know, at the end of the day, outside of the centre-back position, Celtic should be strong enough, regardless of whether it's, you know, Iwata or Kobayashi, because they have got so much firepower going forward, provided they can click back into form. It shouldn't really make a difference defensively, because Celtic should, as you rightly say, have most of the time on the ball and be able to exploit Inverness, and they shouldn't be having to spend too much of the time in this game defending. So we might get away with it slightly more than perhaps if we'd been playing, you know, a top team in the Scottish top flight, like, you know, even like a Hearts or an Aberdeen in the final. We might have been able to offer a bit more of a resistance going forward.
We prediction for tomorrow night, Easter Road?
As I say, I think we've seen the spikiness from Postecoglou in his presser today. I think that will translate back onto the team. I know we've not been playing particularly well the last couple of games. I think that all changes tomorrow night at Easter Road. I think Celtic will win. I think Celtic will win comfortably. I'm going to go for 3-0.
3-0. I like it. And more importantly, any predictions for Sutton Death tonight?
Well, I find it interesting because you've decided to wear your Aaron Moy t-shirt, and it would be poetic if you were to lose Sutton Death when you've been wearing that t-shirt. It almost sounds as if you're wearing the white flag.
I'd be underwhelmed. On that note, in he comes, the main man.
All right, guys.
How are we doing?
Here he is.
Oh, I'm good. Much like last week, nervous and excited because this could be it, or it might not be.
Could have been it last week as well.
Could have. Aye. As I say, I was like last week on the same scenario. We are a match point scenario again. So yes, there are 2 rounds left, including tonight. Currently, the score is 16-15 to Jonathan. So Russell must win tonight to take it to the last day, or Jonathan can crush all of his dreams.
I'm turning off my comments now.
Yes, comments off, gentlemen, because yes,
Jonathan,
it's that time.
The question is, can you hang? Can you hang? Because now is the time. You're under pressure that you have not felt in the last 9 weeks. You've never had to go second, in 9 weeks. You bottled it last week when going first is clearly your main advantage. That's been proven. Now you bottle it because it mattered. And a wee bit like a wee certain Mickey, but I don't want to insult you too much. But one thing is for sure, this week at second place, you've proven time and time again, if you go second, you get beat.
It'll be even more enjoyable to beat you from second, Russell. I am going away from home. I'm entering Russell Boyce's show. Russell Boyce is the one that's under the most pressure because he cannot stand the thought of his little brother coming on to his show and beating him at his own game.
I want to win, but if there's been one difference between me and you growing up, is I can handle getting beat. You never could handle getting beat. That is the reality. So don't you spin it on here like that. Trust me, I might not want to lose, probably because I don't lose very often, but you could not handle losing anything. You were nuts when we were growing up. So I'm confident, mate, that whatever pressure I'm feeling, you're feeling more.
I think I'll be okay. I'll be okay.
Okay won't be enough tonight, mate.
Well, with
Well,
that
we'll
being
see.
said, guys.
That's what the question is, Russell. We're about to find out.
Yeah, it's all coming. It could be tonight. But yes, 1 point, Jonathan was 4 behind, then 5 behind, then 2 in front. And here we are on the cusp of maybe going to the last day. So I know who's going first. There's no point in asking because Russell has basically told us he's going first tonight. So tonight's question, guys, has a very nice 21 answers. And I think it's one of those questions that when you hear it, you might go, oh, that's actually quite easy. But I think once you knock all the big answers out the way, you might be struggling a wee bit. So tonight's question is quite a simple, short one. I want you to name any goalkeeper to play at least one competitive game for Celtic since the 1998-99 season, which is the year that the SPL came into being. So yeah, just any goalkeeper who's played one competitive game for Celtic since 98-99. As I say, it's one of those ones that sounds a bit like, oh, it's not too bad. But trust me, I think when you get through the big ones...
Oh my God, I hate you, man. Right, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. We will start with the obvious one, the man of the hour that was full of the chat today, and that is Joe Hart.
Obviously, correct answer, yes.
Okay. I'll take one that was slightly better, but was also the same nationality. I'll go Fraser Foster.
Okay. Fraser Foster.
Slightly better.
Slightly better, yeah.
Slightly better English version.
Slightly taller and slightly better. Aye.
Well, to be fair, Joe Hart was probably getting a game for England over him for a while.
Let's say Rab Douglas.
Of course, Robert Douglas, yes.
Let's say Artur Boric.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I'm just ticking them off as you go. Magnus Hedman.
Yes, indeed.
David Marshall.
Oh, yep. Each.
Will we go for Holy Hands? Not the Holy Goalie, the Holy Hands. Vasilius Barkas.
Barkas. Yes.
Very good. Barkas. Aye. I always forget about Barkas. I will go for Lucas Zaluska.
Yeah, Lucas Zaluska as 4 each after 4.
I'm going to go for the... Yeah, we like this name. It's just one of the best names to ever play for Celtic. Francisco Javier Sanchez Barroto.
So that's a good one.
When you said one of the best names, I was like, I know who he's going to say here. Right, so Jonathan, obviously you need this one or else Russell wins. So,
Okay. I am going to say Mark Brown.
yeah.
Oh, it's good.
Oh, well done. So, yep, 5 each after 5. We've got a maximum of another 5 guesses each, or if he's managed to get all the answers. And we might even have a tiebreaker question.
I've got one more. I'm struggling. I think this is the night he wins. I'm going to say Dimitri Karin.
Dimitri Karin is the correct answer, yes.
I'm going to say Craig Gordon.
Oh, shit!
Close, Craig Gordon, yeah, indeed. Right, Russell.
Oh, okay, Scott Bain.
Yeah, Scott Bain.
Oh, very good, yes.
Yes.
Forgot about Bain.
And back to you, Jonathan.
I'm going to say Jonathan Gould.
Yeah, that's correct as well. Okay, so we are at 7 apiece after 7 kicks each. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 7 left in the pot.
I've got him. I just need a minute to get to his name. He is Northern Irish. He played in the Scottish Cup final, and I cannot think of his name. Oh, shit. This is what you call the pressure, isn't it? Oh, shit. And I don't think my other one played the competitive game. Why don't we mix it up then instead and take a random stab because I can't remember his name? And this is shite because I know who I'm talking about and I cannot get the surname. Oh, I cannot get the surname. So I'm going to need to go on a really gamble here and go for his counterpart. I don't know if he played a competitive game or not. I'm going to say Michael McGovern.
Michael McGovern. I know who you're thinking about. I know who the others you're thinking about. But Russell, I can tell you, Michael McGovern never played a game for Celtic. So with that being said,
I've given all the clues away. I can't get his name.
I don't actually know that one. I know who you're thinking of. Played in the
heartbeat noise is going, guys.
Over.
This could be it.
I just couldn't get his name.
I'm gonna have to guess somebody else, and I'm not sure he played either though.
Oh, it could be
Logan Bailey.
That's who I had. Logan Bailey. That's the other name, but I didn't think he played a competitive game. See if he has.
Logan Bailey, well, that's how it's written, or Bailey, however you want to pronounce it, did play a competitive game against Hamilton Accies. Jonathan, you have won! Sutton Death! You've done it!
I had Logan down, and that's that my bottom name was Logan, and I moved the goalposts again. What is the name of that other Northern Irish goalie, though?
Connor Hazard.
Hazard, and you had a Z. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get it.
Well,
Dominic Turvey as well, was he correct?
Never played the competitive game.
That
was a one. Okay, so the answers that you've missed.
Hazard.
Connor Hazard. Benjamin.
That was well done, mate. Connor Hazard, I would have. You'd have got Logan, and then it was in the abyss again anyway, so what can you do?
Benjamin Siegrist was a correct answer.
You deserved it, mate.
Doris De Vries was a correct answer.
Doris De Vries.
Stuart Kerr was a correct answer.
What?
1999. He played the 3-0 shame game. Yep.
So it's from 1999 season or
from 1999? From the 1999 season.
99.
Tony Warner in the 5-1 game from the early season. And the one that was really obscure because he only came on as a sub in a game in 99 because Jonathan Gould got injured was Barry John Corr. He was the other one. But yeah, so Jonathan, you've won it. Now, obviously, next week we can play one more game just for the shits and giggles. Maybe Russell can get
narrative cup, please.
Bragging rights. Yeah, I mean, dead rubbers and bragging rights and all that stuff. But yeah,
trophy presentation, Phil. Surely you're sending me a trophy.
Yeah, okay. So yes, we'll have one more game next week playing for the final game of the season just to see if Russell can get the bragging rights. We'll get Ailey Barber drafted in to do the closing the closing to the show to tell us if Russell's got the bragging rights. But yeah,
I can't believe
Jonathan, well done, mate. You've done it. What a comeback! Twice. Victory speech, mate.
Oh well, I'd just like to thank everyone that's believed in me for all this time.
No one did.
He'd run me close. Oh, Terry believed in me from day one. How do you know? Terry had my back. But yeah. It was close. He ran me closer than I thought he would. I was expecting to win it at a landslide. He made me work for it, but the cream always rises to the top. So better luck next time, Russell.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's good to know how compassionate you are in winning, Jonathan. I appreciate that, mate. Real
You were not compassionate last week at all.
I didn't win anything last week. I was trying to ramp the pressure up in the competition. Oh, I can't believe I couldn't get Hazard's name. I was trying to begin his name with a Z.
Oh, right. There's a Z, obviously, the second. Aye. Oh, man.
To get the second name with a Z. And I was like, the fuck could we had it begins with a Z? And I had Logan before. I even thought the Northern Irish guy. Then I went, Bailey, the interesting thing about him was he never played a competitive game. He was just always there with a medal around his neck.
That's what I thought as well, to be fair.
He got a couple of games in Dyler's second season, one of which was against Hamilton Accies that we drew. I think they scored a late equaliser against us, but he didn't play many, but he played enough to be a right answer. Well,
we all know this t-shirt's going in the bin.
We knew when you were wearing that. That was really just like having a white flag up.
It was for the double bluff, Jonathan, the double bluff. I thought it'd be quite interesting if I could wear it, because I would then go right back round and go, see, he's my hero. Yada, yada. That was the plan. It didn't pan out that way. You did well, though. You got more than I thought you would, though.
Yes, it was
you did
difficult.
Well.
It was difficult.
When I started feeling like Sanchez Brotto, I thought, he's fucking toiling here. No way he'd be thinking that. Then he says Craig Gordon about 3 answers later. I'm like, oh, Bhoycie, you think too
I had to recheck my list because I was like, I thought Gordon would have been said. I was like, I didn't want to say him now. I think we must have said him.
Right.
Oh, man.
But there we go. So tomorrow night or tomorrow morning, is there a breakfast bar, PMP tomorrow night?
No, I'll do PMP though. I might do. I actually might do a wee fan cam live tomorrow. Because some of you won't have seen fan cam live. I don't know if any of you have done, because I've not done really one this season. Maybe right at the start.
I don't think you have. No.
I've not even done one this season. I must have done one. Right at the beginning, no?
I think the last one you did was last season somewhere, right?
Right, for the end of the season, because the game's not on the telly, we will all club in together and we will watch the game on the channel. Have your telly on or whatever device it is you're watching on. And I will put the game on. I'll set up over there so my telly's in front of me, because obviously I'll be paying for it legitimately and all that. And we will watch the game tomorrow. If you want to get on the bus and watch the game with Bhoycie on the bus, and if anyone else, in the team wants to watch it at the same time and we can somehow time it up, we could have 2 cameras on. I'm always up for exploring avenues. You never know. It could be quite fun, that. But I will definitely... Last October, says Pam. See, Pam's on the ball. There's Pam right in there. Last October, Bhoycie. How you know it's October, Pam, I will never know. That is hardcore. Yeah. I thought I'd done one. Last one I done, everyone kept ruining it. That can happen. But yes, we can definitely do a wee fan cam tomorrow. I think we'll do it, or a watch along, as people call it. This is so generic. We have to have a different name on the bus. We will do a wee fan cam live tomorrow, and I will suggest to anyone in the group chat, if they want to join us, that's cool as well. I look forward to that actually now. It's been ages since I've done that. The old commentary voice comes out, Jonathan, before you know it, you bust into can he turn Kirk Broadfoot? Yes, he can.
Iconic commentary, Russell. Iconic.
Yeah. That was the biggest anticlimax I've had in my life since I started subscribing to ED Pharmacy. But yeah, we'll do that. Tomorrow we will join you from, what time's kick-off tomorrow? 7:45? 8?
7:45, I would guess. 8 at the latest it would be, but... Yeah.
It's not on telly, so I'll be 7:45. I think it's the Rangers game that's on telly. I think it might be 7:45 though as well.
Let's have a look. Yeah, 7:45. We'll jump on here tomorrow night at 7:30. We can do 15 minutes of pre-match nonsense, and then we'll get stuck in. That sounds fun.
Yes, indeed.
So no breakfast bar tomorrow. We will do a full fan cam live and a PMP after. Why not? Indeed. Terry might not be able to make it. I know Terry is the face of PMP, but I do appreciate people have work commitments, and the bus is a wee bit of fun. So if it's too late for Terry, that's okay. I'm not going to hold him against it. I'm sure someone in the team will want to join us. Stubbsy Sauce, yeah, it does get a bit like Archie McPherson. Woof! Woof! And on that note, from the bus to Ange Postacoglu, a personal message, Ange. Keep liking, keep subscribing, and keep stealing the quotes. Nobody cares, mate.